The colony of Elysium 9 sat quietly on the edge of a distant star system, a small outpost of humanity surrounded by jagged crystal forests that glowed faintly in the planet's twin sunsets. The settlers had built their homes carefully, connecting modules with reinforced tunnels and cultivating farms in domed greenhouses that shimmered with controlled light. Life was calm here, almost too calm, but the quiet hid an undercurrent of unease. Humanity was no stranger to danger, and every day on a frontier planet reminded its inhabitants how fragile their existence could be. Among the settlers, one figure seemed particularly insignificant. Dr. Cale Wren was a slight man, with narrow shoulders and thin arms that carried little strength. His hair, dark and unkempt, often fell across his forehead, and his quiet, reflective eyes gave him a soft, almost fragile appearance. To most, he was just a scientist who preferred books and calculations to physical labor or battle. He moved slowly through the colony's central hub, nodding politely to those who passed by, his hands often carrying a tablet or a small device he was tinkering with. Cale had always been underestimated, and he knew it. He had grown used to the murmurs behind his back, the dismissive glances when someone asked if he could help with tasks that required physical effort. People assumed that his slight frame meant weakness, that his intelligence was irrelevant in the face of a real threat. Yet Cale harbored knowledge and skill that few could imagine. He understood not only human technology, but the intricacies of alien mechanics, the ways other civilizations might think and operate. His quiet demeanor was deliberate. It allowed him to observe without drawing unnecessary attention, to plan without interference. The colony's peace was broken one morning by the urgent hum of alarms. Red lights bathed the corridors and the intercom crackled with nervous voices. A scout ship had returned from orbit, its sensors picking up a fleet approaching the system, an alien fleet, well known among human colonies for leaving destruction in their wake. Panic spread quickly. Colonists rushed to shelters, children clutched their parents' hands, and the small garrison scrambled to ready their defenses. Cale watched the chaos calmly, adjusting the readings on his tablet. He had anticipated the possibility of alien contact for years, and he had been preparing quietly, building devices and shields that might save the colony. When he approached the military commanders with his plan, he was met with skepticism. "Dr. Wren, you're a scientist, not a soldier," Commander Halrick said, his tone clipped and impatient. "We have weapons, we have fighters. Your ideas won't hold up against them. These aliens are cunning. They study weakness and exploit it. I have something that can give us an advantage, something they will not expect." Among them were engineers and technicians who had worked with him before. They knew that his inventions often exceeded expectations. With little more than a polite nod, Cale moved to the colony's defensive hub, a room lined with panels and screens displaying the surrounding crystal forests and orbital space. He began activating a series of devices he had designed in secret, devices that could manipulate energy fields, redirect force, and create barriers strong enough to withstand a direct strike. The hum of power filled the room as the devices synchronized, forming a protective shield around the main habitat. Outside, the first alien scouts entered the system, sleek ships with angular designs that shimmered with a strange, iridescent light. They moved with precision, scanning the colony and sending signals that no human translator could decipher. When the first attack came, firing beams that would have easily penetrated the colony's standard defenses, Cale's shields held firm. Sparks and light danced across the surface, but the barrier did not break. Engineers watched in disbelief. Soldiers exchanged stunned looks. Even Commander Halrick frowned, his skepticism fading. "It's working," Cale said quietly, almost to himself. But his mind was already calculating the next steps. The aliens would adapt quickly. A single shield, no matter how strong, would not be enough to protect the colony for long. He needed to think ahead, to predict their movements and stay one step ahead. The first day of the alien approach passed with tension that weighed heavily on the colony. Cale moved among the defensive stations, adjusting settings, redirecting energy, and guiding the engineers through the protocols he had devised. Slowly, the other colonists began to notice that his instructions were not just correct, they were brilliant. The shields did more than block attacks. They funneled energy, creating zones where the aliens' weapons were less effective. Cale's quiet presence inspired calm in others, and his meticulous planning gave hope in a situation that seemed hopeless. That evening, as the twin suns set behind the crystal forests, Cale stood on a ridge overlooking the colony. The alien fleet hovered in orbit, their lights reflecting off the crystals below. For the first time, he allowed himself a small sense of satisfaction. Humanity had been underestimated before, and the aliens would likely make the same mistake. But Kale knew that appearances could be deceiving. Strength was not always measured in muscle or size. Sometimes it was measured in mind, in courage, and in the willingness to act when others doubted. Back in the colony, families huddled in shelters, watching the glowing sky. Some whispered prayers, others exchanged nervous speculation. Kale's actions had not yet been widely recognized, but a few engineers and soldiers were beginning to understand that this quiet, frail man might be their best hope. One young technician, Mara, spoke softly to a friend. "I don't know how he does it," she said. "He's calm. Even when everything else is chaos, he knows what to do." He designed contingency plans, backup systems, and traps that could be activated if the aliens pressed too close. Every movement was precise, calculated, and designed to maximize human advantage. By the end of the first cycle, the aliens had launched several probing attacks, each one repelled by Kale's defenses. The colony remained intact, though scratches of light from energy beams marred the shield surfaces. Engineers and soldiers worked tirelessly to maintain the systems, guided by Kale's quiet but firm instructions. He moved among them, offering encouragement and advice, never once raising his voice, yet commanding attention through the clarity of his thought. When the colonists gathered for their evening meal in the communal hall, the mood was cautiously optimistic. Children still clung to their parents, and older settlers still whispered about the dangers outside, but there was a sense of awe at the results. "He's doing what we thought impossible," someone said, nodding toward Kale, who stood at the far end of the hall, quietly reviewing a schematic. "All this time, we underestimated him." For the first time, perhaps some of the colonists were beginning to see the truth, that strength is not always obvious, and that the mind can achieve what the body alone cannot. Night fell over the crystal forests, and the colony's lights glimmered like stars reflected on the planet's surface. Kale returned to the observation deck, studying the alien fleet as it lingered in orbit. Their movements were deliberate, almost predictable, yet their numbers were imposing. He knew the challenge ahead would be far greater than today's skirmishes. The aliens would soon realize that their initial attacks had failed, and they would respond with something more dangerous. Kale allowed himself a brief moment of reflection. He remembered the early days, when his colleagues dismissed his theories about alien technology and human potential. He remembered the solitude of long nights, building and experimenting in silence, preparing for a moment that might never come. And now, here it was. The aliens had arrived, and humanity's survival rested on ingenuity, courage, and the ability to act when others refused to believe. He straightened, adjusting the settings on a nearby console. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new attacks, and new tests of skill and resolve. But Kale was ready. He would show the colony and the aliens that underestimating humans was a mistake no one could afford to make. His appearance might suggest weakness, but his mind, his strategy, and his determination were unmatched. As the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the crystalline landscape, Kale watched the alien fleet with quiet determination. The settlers slept in their shelters, unaware of how close danger had come or how much had been achieved through one man's foresight. Kale's fury was not loud or destructive. It was precise, controlled, and deadly in its effectiveness. And soon, the aliens would learn that even the frailest human could become a force of unimaginable power when pushed to defend what mattered most. Tomorrow, the battle for Elysium 9 would continue. And Kale Ren, the man everyone thought was fragile, would rise to meet it. The morning on Elysium 9 began with a tense quiet. The alien fleet lingered in orbit, larger ships glinting in the dim light of the twin suns, their presence a constant reminder of the danger surrounding the colony. The colonists moved with nervous energy, repairing shields, checking systems, and preparing for what might come next. Most still whispered doubts about the frail scientist who had taken charge, but the results of yesterday's defense had begun to change their minds. Kale Ren, with his quiet determination and unmatched intellect, had earned a cautious respect. Kale did not seek recognition. He walked through the control hub, reviewing data from the fleet's sensors. The aliens were studying the colony's defenses, probing for weaknesses. They moved in formations that were precise, disciplined, almost surgical. But even the most disciplined enemy could not account for human unpredictability, and Kale intended to use that to his advantage. He called a meeting with the colony's engineers and military officers. "They will test us today," he began, his voice calm, steady, and authoritative. "They are gathering information. Every movement we make will be analyzed. If we respond predictably, they will find a way through our defenses. We cannot let that happen." Kale pointed to a display of the crystal forest surrounding the colony. "We will use the environment. The aliens do not understand this terrain. The forests are dense and jagged, and the crystals can bend energy. We can create traps, hide decoys, and force their smaller ships into zones where they will be vulnerable. Their advantage is technology, not adaptability. That is where we will win. Just wait and see." He instructed engineers to camouflage defense turrets within the crystals, making them nearly invisible until activated. Every detail was meticulously planned. As the hours passed, the alien fleet began probing closer. Small scout ships slipped past the shields and moved toward the colony's outer perimeter. Kale monitored their movements, noting patterns in speed, formation, and response time. He adjusted drone positions and shield frequency, creating zones that would confuse the aliens and make their navigation difficult. At first, the humans watched nervously. Then the first traps were sprung. A scout ship entered a trap zone, and its engines faltered under the influence of a gravity modulator. The ship spun uncontrollably, its lights flickering as it collided with a crystal ridge. Engineers cheered softly. Even some of the soldiers who had doubted Kale began to show surprise. Halric, still uneasy, studied the displays. "This is unexpected," he admitted. Kale only nodded. He had expected that reaction. Humans often judged by appearances, but the outcome of action revealed true strength. The aliens quickly adjusted. They began coordinating their movements more carefully, trying to avoid the traps. Kale anticipated this. He had studied their communication patterns and noticed that they responded rigidly to immediate threats. They could adapt slowly, but rapid, unpredictable changes would disrupt their approach. He directed the drones to create feints, false targets, and energy pulses that would confuse their sensors. One by one, the alien scouts became entangled in a web of controlled chaos, struggling to navigate zones designed for human advantage. By midday, the colony's defenses were holding, but Kale knew the aliens were only testing the waters. They were calculating, learning, preparing for a larger strike. He gathered a small team of volunteers, engineers, drone operators, and a few soldiers willing to follow his lead, and led them to the crystal forests. Here, they would set additional traps and ambush points, turning the natural landscape into a weapon. The forests were eerie and beautiful. Light from the twin suns glinted off the sharp crystals, scattering reflections across the ground. Shadows moved unpredictably as drones shifted positions, and every ridge and hollow became a potential defensive site. Kale moved through the area with quiet efficiency, giving instructions, adjusting devices, and observing the environment as if reading a complex map. "You really think this will work?" one young soldier asked nervously. Kale looked up, his expression calm but firm. "It will work if we remain disciplined and precise. The aliens expect straightforward attacks. We will give them nothing straightforward. They underestimate humans, and that will be their mistake." A small alien strike team approached the colony from the northeast, their ships sleek and fast. Kale's traps activated in sequence. Gravity modulators slowed their movement, drone feints diverted their attention, and energy pulses scrambled their targeting systems. The humans fought alongside the devices, firing defense turrets concealed in the crystals. Within minutes, the alien ships were forced to retreat, their formation disrupted and engines damaged. Colonists watching from the safety of the hub erupted in cheers. Mara's eyes shone with excitement. "I knew he could do it," she whispered. "He's amazing." "This is only the beginning," he said quietly. "They will adapt. We must stay ahead." Soldiers who had doubted him began to follow his instructions without question, trusting his calm, precise commands. By the evening, it was clear that Kale's strategies had transformed the colony's defense. What once seemed fragile, a single scientist's untested plans, had become a coordinated, intelligent response that even the aliens struggled to overcome. As night fell, Kale walked through the colony, checking systems and speaking briefly with engineers. The settlement glowed softly under the protection of energy shields, safe for now. Families gathered in communal areas, sharing meals and stories to keep morale high. Children laughed quietly, unaware of the dangers that hovered above them, while adults whispered about the difference Kale had made. Commander Halrick approached him, a mixture of respect and lingering doubt in his eyes. "I underestimated you, Ren," he admitted. I thought your ideas were risky, maybe even foolish, but you've proven me wrong. This colony might actually survive this attack because of you." He plotted movement patterns, calculated probabilities, and adjusted the placement of additional traps. The aliens were intelligent, but Kale knew they were not capable of understanding the full depth of human unpredictability. They relied on patterns and logic. Humans had neither. As he worked, he thought about the colony's perception of him. They had always assumed him weak, fragile, inconsequential. It was a convenient assumption, one that had allowed him to work unnoticed for years. But assumptions were dangerous, especially for those who relied on them to underestimate their enemies. Kale's calm demeanor, his soft-spoken words, and his slight frame were all part of an advantage that few had realized until now. Outside, the crystal forests glimmered under the twin moons, strange reflections casting shadows that danced across the rugged landscape. The drones shifted silently among the ridges, maintaining vigilance. Energy shields hummed softly, a constant reminder of the colony's fragile safety. Kale stood on a ridge overlooking the scene, his gaze steady. He could see the faint outlines of alien ships far above, maneuvering, probing, testing defenses he had so carefully built. They would not stop, but neither would humanity. Mara approached him, her eyes bright with awe. "Do you really think we can win?" she asked. Kale looked at her, his expression gentle but firm. "We can," he said. "If we work together, think carefully, and never underestimate our own strengths. The aliens think they are superior. That is their mistake. Our advantage is human creativity, adaptability, and courage. That is something they cannot predict or counter. You've changed everything." As he stood alone on the ridge, the night air cold against his skin, Kale felt the weight of responsibility, but also the clarity of purpose. Humanity was underestimated, often dismissed, but that was precisely why it had survived so far and why it could thrive in the stars. Strength was not always what it seemed. Intelligence, strategy, courage, and the willingness to act when others hesitated were far more powerful than appearances suggested. He returned to the control hub one last time before resting, checking every system, reviewing every trap, and preparing contingency plans for the day ahead. The colonists were safe for now, and Kale knew that safety was fragile. But he also knew that underestimating humans, would be the aliens' greatest mistake. As the colony slept, Kale's mind raced with possibilities. Tomorrow, the aliens would advance. Tomorrow, the test would become a true challenge. But Kale Ren, the man who had been thought frail, would meet it with the precision, creativity, and calm fury that no enemy could ignore. Humanity's resilience was just beginning to show, and he would be its guiding force. The twin moons rose high over Elysium 9, casting silvery light across the crystal forests. Somewhere above, alien ships hovered, unaware of the full extent of the human ingenuity below. Kale watched silently, ready for the battle that would define the colony's survival. And the aliens, first lesson in underestimating humanity. The morning light on Elysium 9 was pale and cold, filtering through the jagged crystal forests that surrounded the colony. The twin suns had barely risen when the alarm sounded, a sharp, urgent wail echoing through the settlement. This time, it was no mere probing strike. The alien fleet had advanced closer, their ships moving with intent, larger vessels among them that dwarfed anything the colony had encountered before. The sky was filled with their dark, reflective forms, and a heavy tension gripped every human heart. Kale Ren was already at the control hub, eyes scanning multiple screens at once, his hands moving swiftly across the consoles. He had anticipated this escalation. Yesterday had been a test, a minor skirmish. Today would be far more dangerous. His team of engineers and soldiers worked beside him, each one moving with a mix of nerves and determination, following the precise instructions he issued. Commander Halrick entered the room, his usual stern demeanor shadowed with concern. "Ren," he said, "this is bigger than yesterday. Some of these ships could tear the colony apart in minutes. Are your plans ready? Trust your training, follow instructions, and we will survive this." Gravity modulators in the forests had been repositioned overnight, drones deployed, and hidden energy turrets prepared to respond. Kale's preparations were meticulous, and he moved with calm authority, coordinating every unit, every shield, every trap. The first wave struck near the colony's eastern perimeter. The small alien ships darted through the forest, firing beams that splintered against the energy shields Kale had set up. Turrets hidden among the crystals opened fire, precision lasers striking the alien vessels with calculated efficiency. One scout ship was caught in a gravity trap, spinning helplessly as its engines faltered. Another collided with a crystal ridge after being lured by a drone decoy. The colonists watching from behind reinforced windows gasped and cheered. Children clutched each other, whispering questions, while adults exchanged astonished looks. Some soldiers who had doubted Kale's strategies were now shouting orders, coordinating their responses according to his plans. The frail scientist, once overlooked and underestimated, was guiding them all with quiet determination and brilliance. Kale did not pause to acknowledge their amazement. His mind raced ahead, calculating the aliens' likely next move. He had studied their behavior and realized that they would adapt quickly, but their rigidity was a weakness. They could adjust slowly, but sudden, unexpected tactics would disorient them. A second wave approached from the northwest, larger and faster than the first. Kale had anticipated this, and the terrain had been prepared. Gravity modulators slowed the ship's approach, drones distracted their targeting systems, and hidden turrets opened fire at the precise moment. One ship collided with a concealed energy barrier, its hull sparking violently before drifting away, disabled. Another, attempting to maneuver around the traps, found its path blocked by a sequence of redirected energy pulses, forcing it to retreat. Commander Halrick watched in disbelief. "I don't know how he does it," he muttered to an officer beside him. "Every move is calculated, every reaction anticipated. It's like he's thinking faster than the aliens themselves." Kale calculated the safest interception points, the timing of energy pulses, and the ideal sequence of traps. He knew that this confrontation would test everything he had prepared. He assembled a small team of skilled pilots and engineers to accompany him in a daring maneuver. They would take small craft into the alien vessel's approach path, distracting it and giving the colony's defenses an advantage. Mara, who had been assisting with drone operations, volunteered to join him, her eyes determined. "I won't let you face them alone," she said quietly. Kale nodded, appreciating the loyalty and courage. Together, they piloted their small crafts into the path of the alien ship, weaving through energy traps, dodging beams, and luring the vessel toward a carefully prepared field of gravitational anomalies. The large alien ship faltered, its systems struggling to compensate for the unexpected environmental manipulation. Kale's team fired precision lasers and triggered energy pulses, weakening its defenses and forcing it to retreat temporarily. Back at the colony, the rest of the colonists held their breath as the battle unfolded. Every action, every calculation was a testament to human ingenuity. Kale's calm presence and strategic mind guided them through the chaos, turning what could have been a massacre into a controlled engagement. Engineers monitored systems, soldiers fired turrets with precise timing, and drones executed maneuvers with flawless coordination. The aliens had expected resistance, but not this level of intelligent, unpredictable defense. As the sun reached its zenith, the battle continued with relentless intensity. The aliens regrouped, attempting new angles of attack. Kale's traps adapted, his drones shifted positions, and his energy pulses forced repeated retreats. The colonists' confidence grew, and their trust in Kale solidified. The scientist who had once been underestimated was now the heart of their defense, a symbol of humanity's resilience and resourcefulness. Kale remained focused, monitoring the battle from the control hub while coordinating actions in the field. His mind worked faster than any machine, predicting the aliens' moves and adjusting his strategies in real time. Every trap, every maneuver, every calculation was a carefully considered step in a larger plan. The aliens were powerful, but their power relied on predictability. Humanity's unpredictability was now their greatest threat. Mid-afternoon brought a tense moment. One of the alien vessels managed to breach a section of the outer defenses, its energy beams striking a secondary shield. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and soldiers scrambled to respond. Kale's voice cut through the chaos, calm and authoritative. "Divert power to the secondary shield, activate gravity modulators, use drone decoys now." The breach section held, and the alien ship, frustrated, retreated under a barrage of energy pulses and precise laser fire. Mara's piloting skills were instrumental in maneuvering their craft to intercept the vessel, demonstrating that Kale's team's coordination was flawless under pressure. By late afternoon, the alien fleet began a systematic retreat. Their probing strikes had failed, their formations disrupted, and their systems tested beyond expectation. Kale's strategies had not only defended the colony, but had demonstrated the effectiveness of human ingenuity in the face of superior technology. In the calm after the battle, the colonists gathered in the central hub. Cheers echoed through the corridors, but Kale remained focused on the data, reviewing the aliens' movements and calculating potential weaknesses for future encounters. Mara approached him, smiling but exhausted. "You did it, Kale. You saved us all. But we must remain vigilant. They will return and their attacks will only grow stronger. Today was a test. Tomorrow they will come with greater force. The colony owes you more than I can say." Drones patrolled the area, energy shields hummed softly, and hidden turrets waited silently. The aliens had retreated for now, but their presence lingered in the minds of all who survived. Kale stood alone on a ridge, looking at the distant lights of the alien fleet, now hovering far above the planet. He thought about the battles to come, about the increasing threat that would test the colony and its people. Yet, despite the danger, he felt a sense of quiet determination. Humanity had survived, not through strength alone, but through ingenuity, adaptability, and courage. He turned his gaze back to the colony, watching families move about their homes, children playing quietly despite the tension, and soldiers maintaining vigilance with renewed confidence. Kale knew that they had witnessed something important: the power of human resourcefulness. Even the most underestimated individual could become the key to survival. The night passed with relative calm. Systems were checked, drones maintained, and Kale continued his calculations, preparing for the inevitable return of the alien forces. He knew they had learned from today's engagement, that their next attack would be more cunning, more dangerous. But he also knew that humanity's greatest strength lay not in technology alone, but in the creativity and courage of those who used it. By the time the first light of dawn touched the crystal forests, Kale was ready. Every trap, every shield, every drone was optimized for the battles to come. The colonists had begun to understand that strength was not always visible, that the mind could accomplish what the body could not, and that even a single individual could change the course of an entire conflict. Kale Ren, once considered frail and unremarkable, had become the cornerstone of the colony's defense. And the aliens, no matter how powerful, had begun to understand that underestimating humans was a mistake they could not afford to make. The horizon glimmered with alien ships returning, and Kale's calm gaze met it. Today, humanity had survived. Tomorrow, they would fight again. And Kale, with his fury controlled by intellect and strategy, would be at the center of it all, guiding his people through the storm with the quiet, unstoppable force that no enemy could ignore. The next morning on Elysium 9 arrived heavy and tense. The twin suns rose pale over the jagged crystal forests, illuminating the colony's protective domes and energy shields. Kale Ren stood at the control hub, scanning the distant horizon where alien ships had begun to gather in a much larger formation than before. It was clear they were preparing a full-scale assault. Yesterday had been a test. Today, it would be war. Kale's mind worked faster than any human eye could follow. Every movement of the alien fleet was tracked, recorded, and analyzed. He had studied their behavior for days, noting patterns and weaknesses. Now he had to predict their strategy and counter it before they could strike. The colony's survival depended on precision, intelligence, and human ingenuity. Commander Halrick paced behind him, his brow furrowed. "This is far beyond anything we've seen. One mistake and it's over," he muttered. Kale did not respond immediately. He was already giving instructions to engineers and drone operators, ensuring that every defensive measure was in place. "Prepare the gravity modulators along the eastern ridge," Kale said calmly. "Deploy decoy drones in the central approach. Activate energy pulse arrays at intervals of 7 seconds, not 8. We need them to make miscalculations." Ships of all sizes shimmered in the morning light, their sleek forms gliding toward the colony with a deadly grace. The smaller attack vessels darted forward first, testing the perimeter, while larger command ships hovered ominously in the distance. Kale's eyes followed them, calculating velocity, angle, and timing. He adjusted shield frequencies, rerouted power to critical areas, and activated a network of drones that moved like silent ghosts through the crystal forests. The first strike came within minutes. Beams of energy splintered against the shields, sparks flying where the aliens tested the edges of Kale's defenses. Gravity modulators activated, and drones emitted pulses that disrupted enemy navigation systems. One of the smaller ships, caught off guard, collided with a ridge of crystal formations, its hull cracking under the impact. Soldiers cheered as energy turrets hidden in the terrain fired with deadly accuracy, forcing another ship to retreat. Kale's mind was already ahead of the attackers. He knew the aliens would adapt, but they could only adjust so quickly. Predictable patterns would be punished, but chaos and ingenuity were advantages humans could exploit. He activated a secondary network of drones, sending false signals to mislead the larger ships, drawing them into traps and energy pulses designed to immobilize them temporarily. Mara, piloting a scout craft under Kale's guidance, weaved between the alien vessels. She released decoy drones that emitted signals mimicking human energy signatures. Several enemy ships diverted their course, attempting to intercept the illusions, only to be caught in gravity traps or slowed by energy pulses. Kale's strategy was working. He was not only defending the colony but actively controlling the battlefield, forcing the aliens to react to human decisions rather than their own plans. By midday, the battle had escalated. Alien command ships moved closer, their weapons capable of destroying entire habitat modules if fired. Kale knew that a direct confrontation was inevitable. He called together a small strike team, composed of pilots, engineers, and soldiers willing to take calculated risks. Their mission was to distract and weaken the larger vessels, giving the colony's defenses a better chance to hold. Kale led the team himself, piloting a small craft with Mara beside him. They moved toward the alien command ships, carefully navigating between energy traps and decoy fields. Laser pulses streaked through the air as the aliens targeted them, but Kale's precise maneuvers allowed them to avoid direct hits. They released specialized drones that latched onto enemy hulls, emitting electromagnetic pulses designed to disable key systems temporarily. The larger ships faltered. Engines sputtered, navigation systems glitched, and weapons fired erratically. Kale's strike team maneuvered skillfully, using speed, ingenuity, and precision to weaken the aliens without risking unnecessary lives. The colony's defenders, watching from the shields, coordinated with him, firing turrets at the disrupted vessels and activating traps that caused further damage. Back at the control hub, Kale coordinated every aspect of the battle. He moved between screens, issuing rapid-fire commands while monitoring the health of every shield, turret, and drone. Engineers adjusted energy flows according to his instructions, and soldiers repositioned themselves to cover weak points. Every part of the colony became a part of Kale's strategy, a unified system of human ingenuity designed to survive and outsmart a technologically superior enemy. The aliens responded with desperation. They launched coordinated attacks, attempting to flank the colony and bypass traps. Kale anticipated the maneuver and redirected drones to create new decoys, luring the ships into gravitational fields and energy pulse zones. Several enemy vessels collided or became trapped, unable to navigate the complex battlefield. Mara's craft darted between the enemy ships, releasing more disruptive drones and firing precise laser strikes that further damaged their systems. For hours, the battle raged. Sparks flew, energy shields flared, and drones moved silently among the crystals, executing maneuvers with flawless precision. The colonists fought with courage and determination, inspired by Kale's calm leadership and strategic brilliance. Even those who had doubted him now saw the truth. Intelligence, creativity, and courage could triumph where brute force alone might fail. Late in the afternoon, a particularly large alien ship moved toward the colony's central habitat module. Its energy beams struck the shields with immense force, causing sparks and vibrations that rattled the settlement. Kale calculated the timing perfectly, activating energy pulses and gravitational traps in sequence. The alien ship's engines faltered, and it spun out of control, colliding with a ridge of crystal formations. The impact sent a shockwave through the surrounding area, temporarily disabling nearby ships and giving the colony a critical advantage. The colonists erupted in cheers. Mara's piloting had been flawless, and Kale's precise calculations had saved the habitat module from destruction. Commander Halrick, standing in the control hub, finally allowed himself a smile. "You've done the impossible again, Ren," he said. "I don't know how you think this fast, but it's brilliant." The humans who follow instructions with courage and skill are the real power here. The colonists celebrated cautiously, aware that more challenges were ahead. Families reunited, soldiers shared stories of their victories, and engineers repaired damaged systems with renewed energy. Mara approached Kale, exhausted but smiling. "You were amazing," she said. "I never thought a single person could make such a difference." "We all made a difference," he replied. "Every action counted. But yes, today we showed that humans are not to be underestimated, not by the aliens and not by ourselves." The twin moons cast silvery light over the crystal forests, reflecting off every ridge and ridge-like formation. He thought about the lessons learned: preparation, intelligence, teamwork, and the courage to act when others hesitated. These were the qualities that made humans strong, qualities that no alien technology could fully anticipate. He considered the challenges that lay ahead. The aliens would not stop. They would return with new strategies, new weapons, and greater force. But humanity had proven its resilience. They had learned to fight as one, to use their environment, and to trust in the ingenuity of their own people. Kale's role as a strategist and leader had been recognized, and the colonists now looked to him not just for direction, but for hope. Mara joined him on the observation deck, looking out over the forests. "Do you think they'll come back?" she asked softly. Kale's eyes were steady. "Yes," he said. "And when they do, we'll be ready. We've learned from them, adapted, and strengthened. We will face them together, and we will survive." Humanity is unpredictable, and that is our greatest weapon. Engineers, soldiers, technicians, and even ordinary colonists were now part of a coordinated, intelligent defense. The human mind, with its creativity and adaptability, had proven itself stronger than any single alien advantage. Kale remained on the deck, watching the stars and the distant alien vessels, thinking about the next steps. He would refine strategies, prepare new traps, and continue training the colonists to work as one. The colony had survived the first full-scale assault because of ingenuity, courage, and precision. Tomorrow, when the aliens returned, they would face a human force that had grown stronger, smarter, and more determined. As he finally stepped away from the observation deck, Kale knew that today had been a turning point. The aliens had learned that Elysium 9 was not an easy target, and the colonists had learned that even in the face of overwhelming odds, intelligence, creativity, and unity could overcome fear and danger. And Kale Ren, the man once considered frail, had become the symbol of that resilience, a guiding force for humanity in a galaxy that often underestimated the power of the human mind and spirit. The morning on Elysium 9 was tense and silent. The twin suns barely illuminated the jagged crystal forests that surrounded the colony. In orbit, the alien fleet had returned, far larger than before, their dark, iridescent hulls reflecting the sunlight like a storm of steel and light. This was no mere probe or skirmish. They had come to destroy the colony. Every human on Elysium 9 understood the stakes. Every life, every building, every cultivated field depended on strategy, courage, and quick thinking. Kale Ren stood in the control hub, surveying the fleet through the colony's orbital sensors. His mind raced with calculations, probability models, and contingency plans. The aliens were intelligent, but they relied on predictability. Humans, however, were inherently unpredictable. That was the advantage he had spent days preparing to exploit. "Doctor,"